Okay. How's everyone doing? Woo! Wonderful. Hope you've been having a wonderful day, good afternoon, making some new connections, learning a little bit, maybe finding some new resources. We have had a jam-packed day. I know I've heard from a lot of you saying, I wish we had more of ourselves so we could split ourselves up to go to the sessions we want to go to. But hopefully that's a good sign that there's lots of great content out there, and also opportunities for you to find some new faces and some friends to connect with. So this is our last time slot for the day before the reception, and it's all focused on leadership. And we've kind of split it into two parts. We have a CEO leadership panel that my colleague Joanne St. Godard will moderate in just a moment, and we'll wrap it up with a short sort of circular initiative awards focused on the Quebec ecosystem and some of the innovation awards that will come, and then we'll have a bit of a celebration and toast to the end of day one. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Joanne and the panel for the CEO leadership to join us on the stage, and we'll kick things off.
Oh, come on, you're CEOs, you're not shy. Come and join me. So I'm in a very powerful position because I'm between you and the booze, which is really where I want to be. And I'm incredibly blessed, or we're incredibly blessed, to be joined by the top dogs and some of the best circular economy initiatives in the country. So we're going to take an hour to have what I hope to be a fairly casual conversations where you feel empowered to ask the questions that are top of mind for you. It's not every day that we get a group of dynamic CEOs on the stage that are willing to talk about circularity, but we're going to do that very thing today. So I'm going to do some introductions through their bios, and then I'm going to ask a few questions. And so as we're having this dialogue on stage, please start to use the app to insert your questions so that we can vote them and get them to the top, and Paul's going to help me navigate those because we expect them to be plentiful. So we're going to start with Nuha, who is the co-founder and CEO of Erthos, a climate tech company pioneering next-gen biomaterials to transform the future of plastics. And under her leadership, Ethos has commercialized high-performance sustainable materials, securing over $12 million in funding and expanding globally with a team of scientists and engineers. She's founded Ethos while studying business and environmental economics at the University of Toronto, as you do, where she discovered her passion for sustainable innovation. Beyond Erthos, she champions young entrepreneurs and in particular women. Her work has earned her recognition from Forbes 30 Under 30, the Globe and Mail, and the New York Weekly, reinforcing her commitment to tackling the global plastics crisis through science impact-driven leadership. Welcome. Mr. Wakeley, Guy joined Reconomy in 2023 as the Chief Executive Officer, bringing with him a career-long experience of delivering growth in the engineering, construction, and services industries. He has recent and relevant experience in international M&A, technology disruption, and large-scale operational leadership and transformation. And Selwyn, Crittendon. You may have heard of IKEA. Speaking of which, these chairs rock, by the way. I'd like to bring these home.
That was good.
Selwyn is the CEO and the Chief Sustainability Officer at IKEA Canada, a world-leading home furnishing retailer. For nearly 50 years, anniversary next year, right? 50 years?
Next year.
There you go. Canadians have welcomed IKEA into their homes and have been strong supporters of IKEA brand, product range, and its vision, simply to create a better everyday life for the many people. Selwyn joined IKEA in 2002 and has held numerous roles across the organization, from driving an excellent customer experience to developing and strengthening leaders. Welcome to all. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with an easy one. Fun fact, Selwyn. Fun fact about you that's not in your bio.
Okay. This was a question I wasn't prepared for, but hopefully you can relate. I'm a dad, so I have two young boys, 9 and 12. So in the off time, if I'm not putting together nice IKEA furniture, I'm putting together Lego models. So that's my fun fact.
Nuha, something about you we don't know. It's not in your bio.
Not in my bio. Fun fact about me is that I was classically trained in vocals for 10 years before I started the company. And no, I will not sing.
That was going to be my next prompt. Someone asked that in the questions. Nuha, will you sing? Thank you. Guy, last but not least.
Well, thank you, Joanne. I've got lots of facts, but I don't know if they're fun facts. But let me see what I can come up with. So I'm going to give you three real quick ones. I studied artificial intelligence in a time, a very, very long time ago. In fact, in the early 1990s. And my kids, I've got 6 kids actually, my kids think that my doctorate was done pre-computer. That's not quite true, but it's almost true. My other fun fact is my real hobby is I'm an aviation geek. And sort of flight instructor and examiner and that kind of thing. Now, aviation isn't seen as being a particularly sustainable pastime, but my kind of investment interest is sustainable aviation, how we can make the aviation sector much, much more sustainable through sustainable fuels. So that's my little hobby, I guess.
Phenomenal. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so I've got some set questions that is going to help the juices flowing in our dialogue, but maybe we can start by just going across the panel and talking about why you're here. You're giving us your time, your support, obviously your expertise. So what does circularity mean to you and your company and you personally? Guy, why don't you start us off?
So we've been through a big journey with Reconomy in thinking through what our purpose really is, Joanne, what our company is really for. And what we've found in talking to our colleagues, talking to staff, talking to customers, is that circularity, rather than being something on the outside of our business, rather than being something that we aspire towards, actually is a central part of what we do. It's who we are. So as we've thought more about this agenda, we've increasingly brought it absolutely to the center of everything we think about. So I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn from professionals in Canada, from professionals further afield, to find out what's happening in their businesses and where the opportunities are, and how we truly make this both a business opportunity and a sustainability opportunity.
Very good.
Amazing. Thank you. Selwyn.
I think the question is, it's a great question. I think for IKEA, this is a part of our DNA. It's a part of our purpose, through our values, how we've led for many years. So 80 years worldwide, 50 almost here in Canada. So for me, when we talk about the circular economy, it really plays into what's happening today. We're in the middle of an affordability crisis. So for me, it's more about how can we take the wonderful things that are happening individually here in this room and find these superpowers of sustainability and affordability and put them together. So for me, it's about listening, learning, understanding where things are emerging, how can we make it better for the average Canadians, and then make sure it's affordable for the many. That's why I'm here today.
Amazing. Nuha.
For us, it's so important for us to be so connected to this network, and I think as an earlier stage company, partnerships has been so critical in being able to scale our technologies, but also see how this transition can actually be a reality. And so for us, what drives us is really being able to reduce our dependency on plastics and how it's so connected to the climate crisis. And I think a lot of the people in this room are also so driven and motivated by the interconnectedness of the circular economy and the climate crisis and how we truly need to work together to drive this transition.
Yeah, it's interesting that you've got different, obviously, age of the company in terms of where you started. We've got a very young startup that's explosive. We've got 2 companies that have been around a long time that maybe are transitioning and have done several transitions along the way. And this is, what I'm hearing from each of you is it sounds like it's becoming central to the company, irrespective of the journey that you've all taken and the trajectory of your company. So really interesting. And maybe so we'll go from this broad conversation of what does circularity mean to the company and to you, to the commitments that you're actually making. And we've talked a lot today about action, and this is we've promised in the summit that we want an action-oriented summit, but to come out of the discussions in each of the sessions, what are the things that we're going to take with us and actually action them as we move forward. So each of your organizations has made significant commitments. You have belief down to its core, and achieving these really necessitates an integration in the whole company, in the structure, in the culture. Can you talk about how you do this in your organization? Start us off.
For us, I think circularity has always been core to our business and to how we think about even the future of our materials. So I'd say that it was less difficult to integrate circularity for us. It was actually making sure that our brand as a climate tech company and a company driven by circularity is not taking away from the business case for our business as well. And so I think for us, it's core to how we've integrated our teams and our partners, but it's also about repositioning circularity and making sure that it's not just an exception or not just a part of a business, but it's truly what's driving financial impact as well. So that's been our journey, is maybe from the other side of things, where we started as an impact-driven circular company and now sort of going through this repositioning of our business.
Makes sense. Guy?
So I think I would say this. Our business is not a manufacturer. We're a services company. We do things. Pure and simple, we do things. We manage huge amounts of material and resources through the waste and recycling sectors. We operate EPR schemes around the world, 43 of them in total. And we do an awful lot of re-commerce, taking back goods for sportswear companies, for apparel companies. And what we've done with the business is increasingly see, look, as we're measuring our productivity, measuring our throughput, measuring our activity, let's express that in terms of circularity. So we're not just selling a service, we're actually genuinely helping our customers be more circular. And as we've developed that thinking over this last 3 years, we've made circularity a thing that we sell, a thing that we enable, and ended up with a business purpose, which is entirely around making our customers more circular. So we've brought it. It's not just been a guiding principle, a North Star. It's now actually what we do and what we try and monetize. That's been the thinking. So it's quite a journey.
Thank you. Selwyn?
Yeah, I talked a little bit about being a purpose-led brand. So for IKEA, we're guided by our vision, and it's to create an everyday better life for the many people. And along those 80 years, it has always been fundamental for us. So when we design our products, it's always based on the understanding of people. So we take a lot of pride in understanding what happens at life at home. So when we design products, we design them with the principle of what we call democratic design: form, function, quality, sustainability, and low price. So when we design our products, we're also talking about the totality, from sourcing the materials to transporting, and then how easy it's for you to get it home, assemble, disassemble, move. And then when you lose that Billy peg, and I'm sure some of us have, we also have the spare parts to make sure that we can keep the life of that product going and going and going. So really for us, it's fundamental. It's the core of what we do. And along the journey, we've talked about, many of us in the room have shopped in the as-is department. Maybe that's the first department that you go to when you hit the store. Or maybe it's the take-back service that we've introduced recently, ensuring that circularity is a part of the conversation, the part of the idea, that many can be a part of this. But it's also about partnership. And I think that's really why I'm here today, because I think we do a lot individually, but how do we partner? And we have wonderful partnerships, like the Furniture Bank that's here today with us. So how do we ensure that no kid goes to sleep on a floor, that we have mattresses that we can donate, and we've done that. So for us, it's core to what we do, it's core to our vision, it's core to our purpose, but more importantly, it's based on life at home. How do we make your life at home easier, more sustainable, and more affordable for you?
I'd like to know a day in the life of a furniture designer at IKEA Furniture Makers. So you've got this vertically integrated culture and commitment to circularity. Yeah. And you've got amazing designers that have to make sure that they're meeting those commitments as a company. So talk to me about how you make that happen from design right through.
So to be honest, I am not a designer, because if it was, everything would be black, brown, and modern. But no, I'm not the designer. But what we do well is really understand life at home. So a lot of time that we spend is collecting information. So we have a life at home report that we use between 40 different countries to understand what does life at home mean. So we can be really granular when we talk about we design furniture for the Canadians, for anyone, so we can be super understanding of what happens at life at home. I also wear a dual title, so I'm not only the CEO, I'm also the CSO. Yes. So it's a dual title role. It's actually kind of cool. So some days I can talk about the P&L, and then I can talk about how sustainability will help enable our business for a longer term. But it's not just me. We have a sustainability team. Haroon is here today representing our team for sustainability. But every coworker at IKEA also has goals tied to sustainability. So my performance is not only measured on the top line sales or bottom line results, it's also about our climate footprint. How are we ensuring that every delivery is EV zero? So how do we ensure that every delivery in our metro areas are done by EV efficient vehicles? How do we ensure that when we talk about reducing our waste, we can actually quantify it? So for me, it's the balance of business, people, and planet all together.
Thank you for that. Guy, maybe you can talk a little bit about motivating, I guess, your rapidly growing company, because we're very mindful that RLG has really exploded in the Canadian context. We're glad for that.
Yep.
Hopefully some of the progressive policies we have in the country are aiding and abetting that.
They are.
But you know, you've got bottom line targets to meet, but you've also got to motivate people to be able to provide the services and the extended value, and do it in a transparent way. So let's be honest, waste management's not always been known for its transparency, but there is new rigor to be had when you're talking about EPR requirements. So can you talk about that transition in the industry?
Yeah, I think it's worth talking a little bit about data and how you measure things and how you bring all that to life. It's also worth talking for a moment about how circularity creates a narrative to attract the best talent and to build the organization. And we found that's been very effective as well. So one of the first things we've done within our company is to get really obsessive and geeky about measuring stuff. So we measure stuff, we accumulate data, and this is hugely, hugely powerful. And what that allows us to do is look at the relativity of what we do compared to what the industry does. It's a really powerful lens to look at your operations through. So for instance, if we're working, collecting waste from a house builder, a construction company, we'll compare the amount of material that goes to landfill against the average for the industry. And then we can look at an increment. We can look at how much better we're doing for our client than the industry does. We can get a kind of a circularity uplift. And we found that that is the most brilliant way of aligning an organization around making a difference. So it's not just that the data provides a way of measuring what you do, it provides a way of aligning people, of energizing people, and helping colleagues really understand that what we do makes a difference for our clients. What we do genuinely makes a difference towards circularity on a national or international scale. And therefore, genuinely, we're an organization that people want to get their friends to come and work for, right? And that's when you know culturally you're making progress, where the metrics that you have, the measures that you have, the things that define your culture and your soul actually attract people to come and work for you and become part of that value proposition. So we think circularity is so powerful in that regard.
Nothing wrong with the data geek.
Oh, no.
It's part of what we need
Got to measure it.
in the industry. And your demand, your clients, are they changing? Are they asking different things from you? Are they requiring that data, that validation, that transparency? Are you seeing an evolution in the marketplace?
So I'll tell you, can I tell you a secret in front of
You're on a mic, but sure.
In front of 700 or 800 people, I'll tell you a secret. The thing that really excites us, right, is when, and this is a secret, but it's true, when we get our data, right, which is our chart, our bar graph, our pie chart, when we get that data into our customers' report, when that data makes it into their sustainability report or their annual report, then we absolutely know that what we're doing is making, in a small way, a difference to their own activities.
Okay.
And they're starting to build reliance upon it. They're building credence around it. So yeah, customers are getting more data-driven. There's no question about that. And actually need a little bit of help, a bit of guidance to understand how these markets are evolving, the importance of data improving their own environmental goals, and then seeing how they get value from their investments by having that data. So customer needs are definitely changing. It's not just about doing the thing, it's about being able to measure the thing and compare that activity to what a market does or what an industry does.
Interesting. And you're in a different situation, Nuha. You're at your very core, really a disruptive model, trying to introduce something very new, and maybe into a market that thinks quite linearly and hasn't been exposed to the new technologies or the new materials that you're engineering. Can you talk about that atmosphere a little bit, how you're going in and trying to convince someone who may be stuck in old ways to open up to what you're creating?
Yeah, it's been a journey, and I think I still remember one of the first partners or pilot partners that we secured over 7 years ago now was this very legacy plastic manufacturer in Asia. And we went down there. We actually ended up booking one-way tickets to Shenzhen because we wanted to live and be next door to the core of plastic manufacturers and try to see what we could do to convince them. So I remember walking into one of those rooms back then, and there was probably 10, again, I'll say, more legacy plastic manufacturing executives. And I walked in there absolutely terrified that they would just turn me around. And I went in there to try to convince them to give sustainable materials a chance. And what I was so surprised by was that they actually were willing to hear me out. They were actually willing to adopt sustainable materials, but they just have struggled to adopt it at scale because of all of the challenges that existed with performance or cost or scale. And so one of those first meetings was actually the most critical for us because we realized that our model was addressing a problem that didn't exist. It was actually important for us to rethink the entire model and focus on the raw materials themselves and how we can integrate and actually try to not disrupt the existing system. And so it's really interesting to see what happens when you just try to have the conversations, and that's why these conversations are so important, because you never know what you will unlock as an opportunity to actually influence your technologies that you're building to actually address these large markets in ways that you never really thought of. So it's been a journey, but it's honestly so exciting and addictive when you can change someone's mind about sustainability and about circularity. And that's what just fuels us every day.
Wow, to try to solve a problem that you know is going to exist in the future and convince a partner to invest in that is a tall order. And we're glad you're back in Canada, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about other folks that you may have to influence in terms of mind changing. Government policy. We have a lot of excellent work that's happening in a national, provincial, and we've got 72 cities, local governments represented in our summit, and local, I would say in a Canadian context, we're really seeing the leadership that the municipalities are taking. But policy making is incredibly important to try to shift the markets that demand circular goods. So, Selwyn, start talking to us about how you're engaging government, how you're bringing them along with some of the leading changes that you need to be able to create those market structures.
I think the first thing is to be a good example. I think for anyone here at IKEA, we believe we're big enough to make a difference. So sometimes it's not about asking the government to help us. It's more about showing the government what we can do together, how we can partner, how we can listen to the consumers and the many Canadians to solve the everyday problems. One example would be an initiative that hopefully you'll hear more about. It's called SHT, or secondhand tax. So for many for-profit industries, unfortunately the consumers are paying to be more circular from a tax perspective. So that Billy bookcase that I referenced earlier, was taxed the first time. And during this process, it lost its luster, it lost the price, but it's still a great bookcase. But when you buy it again, it's still taxed again with HST. Why is that? Why is it costing more Canadians more money to be more circular, where in this instance, it's already been taxed? And we believe that it's an unfair jest. So if you want more people to apply and be a part of the circular economy, give them the opportunity to also do it affordably. So hopefully you'll hear more about that. But more importantly, I think it's great that industry can be here. Government can be here, academia can be here, but it's more important that we do the things to be more relevant for the everyday consumers. How do we make sure that it's more affordable for you to act responsible and to be more circular? So it's not about IKEA asking for support, it's really enabling government and everyone to act responsibly together. And then how do we partner? So whether it's talking about the secondhand tax or giving opportunities to really operate differently and show examples of how we can do this together, that's the most important way to go.
Awesome, love it. Guy, government.
I think Selwyn makes such a great point that actually it's about practical steps. It's about, the sustainability industry shouldn't be ever seen as aspirins looking for headaches, coming out trying to find a problem to solve. We should be bringing practical solutions to government. We should be identifying real things that can make a difference. And ultimately, circularity done right creates revenue for government and creates creates savings for consumers. So I think keeping things practical is very, very important. I think the private sector should also be prepared to invest as well, whether that be deploying capital or deploying time to help government work through the complexity of regulation and get practical solutions out there on the park. We think being in government is a pretty friendless place at the moment. It's tough, right? It's very, very tough. So practical help from industry is what's really, really valuable, we think.
And I think that for all of us in the room that are circular economy practitioners and professionals and advocates, to be able to pull the narrative and the string that really resonates with government in the day, we have to be able to be nimble and be doing that, whether it is affordability and the crisis that we're dealing with right now and the price of goods and maintaining the lifestyle that we've been able to do for so long. And if not that, then economic development in terms of creating jobs and creating industry that is built right here in a Canadian context. So it's pulling on that narrative that sort of teases out what government cares of the day. We have to be savvy enough to do that. Nuha, you're in a different position. You're growing, you're exploring, you're looking for markets that can sustain your growth and continue to do so. What do you look for from government?
I think we've been very fortunate to have the support from our government in the form of funding. They've actually been active investors in a lot of our pilots and actually helping us build out our facilities here in Canada. So very grateful for the support there. But I will say that when we think about policy and the role that we think we can play in that is showcasing what technologies can really look like 5 to 10 years from now, so that policies that are being written today are actually able to accelerate that growth and not hinder them or actually write them out. In some cases, that's really challenging because, of course, from the policy perspective, you're looking at technologies that are ready today and can scale today and maybe aren't looking at what's new in science and tech and what's new in AI and what we can really unlock. And so even as an earlier stage company, we've always had a team dedicated to policy and being able to provide our data, our reports, our new findings in the materials world to policymakers so that they can be informed of what's out there and what they can actually do to support other technologies like ours. So it's a very important part of our growth, and it is fragmented today. I'd say that there's a lot that we can do to really bring things together, especially with the plastic treaty. And I think there's great organizations like EMF out there who are really trying to bring everything together, but there's a lot of work to do still. So hoping that we can all come together and make sure policy's on the right track.
Interesting that you've got dedicated resources to continuing to educate government and keep them informed in terms of how your business is evolving. Tell me practically how you do that. Are you are you asking for meetings on a regular basis? Do you keep this dialogue open? Is it one ministry? Is it several ministries? Practically, what does that look like for you?
Well, for us, it's as tangible as actually sharing our data and our reports directly and putting them into feedback reports with the Environment Ministry. We also regularly host our mayors or ministry officers in the office so they can come and see the technologies real firsthand. And then we also do represent Canada on a global stage, so going to COP and actually being involved in some of those discussions so that our brands that we work with that are primarily CPGs are also confident in us knowing what's out there with policy and making sure that we can support and guide them through that too.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Where is Paul?
Here.
Oh, there he is. He's on the mic. How are we doing for questions? Should I pause?
Sure.
Are they starting to come?
Yeah, there's a few questions in the chat box, or in the question box. If you're open to that. So what would you say are the top needs and opportunities for collaboration within and across sectors to support circularity? So you've touched on this a little bit. Just wondering if there's any further sort of thoughts about how, the mechanisms that we can actually support this collaboration or these collaboration models with.
Who wants to field that? I'll assign it if you don't take it. But
Okay. Maybe I'll start. I think today is a good example. You've all taken time out of your daily job to come here, to learn, to share, to make people aware of what's happening in your areas. But I think the challenge for me is what will you leave with? What will you take back? What are you going to do Monday morning? How are you going to collaborate? So the answer to that question for me is, what are you taking from here? Who are your new partners? Who are you going to reach out to? What steps will you ensure that when you're building your business plan for the next year, how are you integrating the circular economy in everything that you do? Sustainability in every node that you do. Because this really should be a valuable input into your plan, not just on the side. So for me, it's about what are you going to do here today? You have many opportunities with many different individuals from many different industries. How can you make some collaboration points, some dedicated time? And it's not just transactional. How do we make fundamental changes that really resonates with the many Canadians? So it's really the passion, the desire to really take this summit and put it into action. How do we move forward next week?
You know that you just gave them, Paul, and our closing tomorrow. That's exactly what we were going to say. So thanks for that.
Yeah.
Anything else from any of our other speakers?
I think Selwyn's got it absolutely right. Circularity is defined by things being joined together, right? So we have to work with partners. The upstream has to partner with the downstream. Yes. We have to innovate and design for circularity. So it's what we take away to do together collaboratively that makes all the difference. Yeah. Absolutely so.
Yeah.
There's more questions.
All right, let's hear them.
Okay. How do you navigate being a positive signal among all the greenwashing noise?
Love that. Nuha, let's let you bat that one.
How do we continue to be a positive signal? I think for us, it's always been about transparency, and it is really important to ensure that we're sharing as much as possible with our partners, with our brands, about our materials. And in the context of greenwashing for us, there are a lot of situations where bioplastics or alternative plastics have been greenwashed. And I think it's really, really important that we focus on our reporting and the framework we're using to even share a lot of these data points with our partners. So the LCA framework is great. We're able to report on what sustainability truly means from end to end. And that's how we think about at least just greenwashing and ensuring that we're not miscommunicating anything. And it's so important to make sure that we're following the guidelines.
Is there a role in policymaking around that?
Yes, very much so. I think that's the challenge today, is that reporting something in one part of the world may be okay, but reporting it in a completely different part of the world may not be. Yeah. And so that's why it's so important that we do have the resources and the ability to differentiate and have the right messaging in each of the markets.
We're spending a lot of time in our agenda around standards and its role for transparency and equity. So message well heard. Guy, Selwyn, to add to the greenwashing?
So Look, I think on the subject of greenwashing, we have to be really clear about what our businesses are good at and what our businesses could improve at. And particularly when we think about investment, to grow one's company, we have to go out and raise capital. That comes from American investors, Canadian investors, and we have to be very clear about what we can do with that capital and put it to best effect. And what we would say in that debate is that our job isn't to make our businesses bigger. It isn't to make our businesses more beautiful, although we like beauty. Our job is to make our businesses more valuable. Yeah. And we fundamentally believe that sustainable businesses are valuable because sustainable businesses will endure for the long term. A truly sustainable business is a business that's here in 100 years' time, not 10 years' time. So we think in that context of greenwashing, we should be very realistic about what you can do, realistic about what you can't do, and absolutely true to one's principles about what you believe in, and then your business endures for the long term.
I think my colleagues up here have said the key word, and that's transparency.
Yeah.
So even for us as a privately held company, every year we'll come up with our annual summary report, and we'll be very factual in where we're at. So case in point, we also need to share when we don't hit those goals that we state. So we had an ambition by 2025 to be 100% for all of our deliveries to be energy-efficient vehicle delivered. We're not there yet. Well, this year we'll end at 67%. So I've got a little bit more to go. But that also realizes the fact that when we make these ambitions, we also have to put enough energy behind it for us to do it. But we can't do it alone. We need our partners, our local partners on the ground in the cities helping us to create the EV infrastructure, making sure the vehicles are ready for us, being able to route and the route management systems to do this. So it's not only transparency in how we communicate, but it's also transparency when we don't do and deliver to what we say we were going to do. And we have to be truthful because that's the trust we need to build. Along this journey, there are going to be bumps and hurdles. There are going to be slips and falls. But that's where you get the true innovation. When it doesn't happen the first time right, that's when you have to go back and you need to rely on the vision, the values, the purpose of what you believe in, and then you lean in, and then we get it there together.
And sometimes the real successes comes in the missteps.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's the failures that really we learn from.
Yeah.
And speaking of investors and shareholders, we're in a pretty unstable geopolitical reality at the moment. Volatile markets, destabilized supply chains, rules changing every other day. Yeah. It makes investing pretty hard. And I wonder, while you're sort of navigating all of this, how do you continue to have your investors and your shareholders sort of stay the course with your models? Start us off, Selwyn?
Well, since I'm privately held, I don't have that shareholder. But I will say that I'm accountable to every Canadian that depends on IKEA to have, let's say, living up to our vision, that everyday better life. So whether it's in the boardroom, in our board meetings, or our P&L, really I'm held accountable to the promises that we deliver to. So for me, it's really about ensuring that we lead by example, we communicate, we're transparent, but we also open up new opportunities for people to understand how they can play a role in the circular economy as well, too.
Thanks. Guy?
So I would kind of re-emphasize that sustainable businesses are here for the long term. And, honestly, as we look to some policy on this continent changing, we're a little bit discomforted. We're a little bit dismayed by US businesses changing their stand on sustainability or inclusivity or diversity because there's a policy thematic or a political preference that's pushing them in that direction. We're discomforted by that. Administrations change, governments rise and fall. That happens on a 4-year cycle, right? But our brands, our businesses, are for the long term. The commitments, Selwyn, that your customers in Canada have to IKEA aren't on a 4-year cycle. You don't elect your customers, right? They're here forever. So we have to take a long-term view of our businesses, I think. So what I say to our investors is we're making our company more valuable, and we're doing it by being more sustainable, more circular. And those two things are inherently linked, absolutely connected, and we'll do it for the long term. So stay the course, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. And it's really not at a consumer level like IKEA deals with, but it's your clients, which is both for you and Nuha. Stay with us. Turbulent times, but we're with you all the way.
Exactly.
And for you, Nuha, how do you keep them motivated?
Our shareholders are venture capitalists or VCs, and they're used to returns in under 10 years cycles, right? And I think
No pressure.
yeah. But I do think that when we started this journey of fundraising and finding our investors, we always wanted to find the investors who were in it for the long run, because I think it was so important to set the expectations with our shareholders from the very beginning that we're going to have to go through different cycles of building this technology, and it'll go through its different waves. And this isn't a business that's going to be a turnaround, profitable business in 3 years, like maybe other software or tech companies. It's a circular economy-driven business, and it requires complete systems change.
Right.
And so it was really important for me, at least with our shareholders, to set those expectations. And we've gone through cycles with the pandemic as well, and what that did to the economy and just our businesses and overall. And so I think what we're dealing with right now is just another one of those challenging times. But I do think that those are the moments where you have the best ideas come out and the most resilient teams step up. And so I do think that we look at each one of these cycles as an opportunity to really think about our business in a new way and unlock something greater than we had before.
Lots of discussion at the moment. Made in Canada, support Canadian businesses, open up trade between provinces, resiliency in building our own economies. Is that starting to affect, is that narrative supportive of what you're trying to do?
Yeah, it's a hard time for sure, but it's only bringing us together stronger. And I do feel like Canadian founders and Canadian businesses are used to having to work 100 times harder to be put on the map globally. And so I think it's just another one of those opportunities to showcase how strong we can be.
You're here.
Yeah.
Guy.
I agree. Canadians work hard. There's no question about that. We work quite hard in England as well, but not quite as hard. Certainly, it's that hard work and that sense of ingenuity and commitment that drives these investments forward. And it has to be a long-term view. Of course it does.
Thank you for that. Anything to add?
I do, and I think this is a topic that we've talked about a lot. So it's not just about where the products come from, right? It's also about the many people that actually have to serve you. So really it's about serving and protecting the many Canadian workers that we also try to protect as well too. So we have been with you for over 50 years. We are a Canadian brand here in Canada, but we also make sure that we service the communities that we also reside in. So it's really an impact to the communities that we serve. So it's not only about buying Canada, but let's protect Canada. Let's protect the communities that we serve, the coworkers that you meet every day. My secret sauce, the 7,200 coworkers, those are the ones that we're trying to protect. Yeah.
Thank you for that. How are we doing? Paul, is there any more surfacing to the top? I can keep going, but there's only 13 minutes left.
A couple questions here.
All right.
We'll start with one. And Selwyn touched on it a little bit with the IKEA SHT initiative, which is really trying to make circularity more affordable for Canadians and more broadly. So one of the questions is, how can sustainability or circular economy be made more affordable? Are there other ideas or ways that these companies are working in that space to drive down costs, for example, for people, make it more affordable?
It's a great question. I think throughout the day I've heard the topic around reuse, recycle, and I started to hear more and more today about repair. So how are we designing our products to be able to be disassembled, reassembled, repaired? How do you have spare parts? So in a time like now, when you have affordability, inflation really knocking on our doors, how do we ensure we insulate ourselves, our products, to make sure that end of life, it can be broken down and then reassembled into a new product? So I encourage many of us to really talk and take a look at from the very beginning of designing of the product. How do we put sustainability and circular economy in the notion, in the initial ideas, and then at the end, make sure that funnel brings everyone in together. That would be my best advice.
All he needs is an Allen key.
All you need is an Allen key. Let's go.
Guy, affordability.
Yeah, repair and reuse are big drivers of affordability, and we have heard a lot today in the presentations about how reuse is particularly relevant in the textile sector. That textile and apparel is a place where huge amounts of money gets deployed on things that are very, very disposable. If only that sector could move forward a little bit, and the technologies are now emerging, that would make a huge difference, I think. That would really drive affordability.
Yeah.
And for you, affordability.
It's a big one. We work with brands like Unilever and Colgate, and they're very price sensitive, and
Sure.
they operate in markets that are also very price sensitive. So when we're designing materials, usually we get a spec sheet from these brands, and they require the performance, but then they also need it to be very cost effective. Sure. And so traditionally, it's been difficult for bio-based or alternative materials to achieve that level of price competitiveness. But today, what we've realized is that it's so important for us to optimize a lot of these solutions according to the specific geography or the specific product application, and not try to over-engineer materials to try to do everything all at once. And so that's been one of our biggest actually shifts as a business, is taking this more custom approach to designing materials for each one of our brands that really hit their unique targets, and showing them that that path to price parity is actually a lot closer than you think if you invest in actually engineering these materials the right way. So it took us a while to get there, but we finally did achieve price parity to plastics in a few of the applications we operate in.
Fascinating, and I'm sure companies and brands who are subject to EPR regulations and are starting to internalize otherwise externalized costs are really better understanding the total costs of the package or the product and the supply chain elements they're using today, and then comparing that makes it much more competitive. I'm assuming that that's supportive.
Exactly.
Of what you're trying to do. It's excellent. Any more from you?
Considering the upfront investments and the potential shifts in business models required for sort of circular economy transformation, does the panel have any thoughts on some of the key strategies or innovative financial mechanisms that businesses can leverage to ensure they're profitable and can demonstrate a strong ROI? So it's a long question, but getting at the essence of how do we encourage more investment in this and make circularity more attractive to investment?
Who wants to start that one?
Well, I can start there if it's okay. So I just think there's a huge opportunity in circular finance in a way that's not currently realized. So it's undoubtedly the case that government has much better borrowing capacity than business. Government can provide much cheaper capital than business generally. So were there to be direct capital incentives to invest in circularity, to directly promote the establishment of circular technologies, circular techniques, and if there were to be a spread in the cost of capital for doing that, a direct financial incentive, that would really make a difference, because then businesses would be incentivized to develop that new production method, incentivized to fund those electric vehicles for deliveries, or incentivized to understand better ways to recover value from textiles at the end of their life. So the deployment of capital is a big part of that, and government can really help, I think.
Yeah. I think it's also step by step. You know, it could be starting with how you design your buildings, renewable heating and cooling, maybe an upfront cost, but the long-term ROI impact to your financial, it's gonna pay out in the win. If you think about LED light bulbs, or you take water-saving taps, there are many steps that you can take. So from the everyday household to the big businesses, how you design sustainability into your practices, your day-to-day, your everyday thinking, it doesn't have to really be upfront cost. It really is investing into the planet, into your people. And then this stems beyond just physical. It's also about educating and upskilling and reskilling your coworkers, really giving them purpose. You know, for us, when we look at reducing our climate footprint, it also puts back to our P&L that we can reinvest into our people. So you have to look at this as an ROI that pays itself back. There's going to be upfront costs in the beginning, but the long-term journey that you'll see the benefits that will pay off will go far beyond your initial investment. It really will uplift your teams and really give you a better, let's say, integration into the conversation versus just a standstill action that you're trying to take.
Which is really counter to the way that we look at our P&Ls. We want instant return. How many days? 10 days, you said, was the tolerance on your VCs to see a return. This is not long term. It's a struggle. It's a culture you have to build. Yeah. Comments around?
I think it's very similar to my colleagues up here, but I do think that it's being able to quantify that and maybe link it with parts of the business that aren't maybe branded circularity. So I think that's been key for us when we're working with big brands, is that we're helping solve a massive sustainability challenge, but we are also helping solve procurement challenges and R&D innovation cycle challenges and the other aspects that are really critical. And for our investors, we have to make the financial story make sense. We're not going to get away from that, but we have to be able to quantify it in a meaningful way.
I'm sure we've got more questions, but I want to ask one about consumers, because I flip-flop on this. I hear from many leading companies that, consumer is king and the consumer is demanding this and we're just meeting a demand. And then I hear from others saying, well, the consumers don't want to pay extra, or they don't care about sustainability. They only care about price point. We toggle between the two. So maybe just in our last 5 minutes, if you could talk a little bit the power of the consumer and the importance in our value chain to your commitments.
I think this is where I stand strong. So for my Life at Home survey, we know that one of the top concerns is affordability, and the next topic is sustainability. So for us, it's not that the consumers don't want it. They want an affordable way to be more sustainable. And that is the superpower that we need to bring together in this room, affordability and sustainability together. Because there we can show many more choices, many more products, many more solutions that make sustainability a lifestyle, a choice, an affordable choice. So for me, it's not about it has to be low price. It has to be the right solution for the consumer and understanding their need. And that's where we have a lot more insight on that Life at Home report that we would counter and say, it's not about just the cost, it's about the purpose, it's about what we do. And how do you get people in the process with you during the journey?
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Kai?
So I think I would say only this, that governments can set policies, and they do it very well. Treasuries can collect tariffs, and they're great at that stuff. That's what they do. But all of that's avoidable, and brands, if they wish, can always find a way to not do something or delay something or obfuscate. But consumer pressure is irresistible. You can't avoid the voice of the consumer. So as a bit of a European perspective, we have deposit return schemes, collection schemes in many of our countries. And they've been put in place by policy, of course they have. But they're driven, they're made to work in the Republic of Ireland or Germany or Denmark by consumers actually choosing to recycle, actually investing in those products and doing something physical. We do an awful lot of work in packaging EPR in Europe. And if one looks at the way packaging is innovated, it isn't the brands that are doing that, it's consumers.
Yes.
So it isn't policy or tariff that would make Coca-Cola change their red bottle top to a white bottle top. Coca-Cola's consumers will do that by not buying the product, right? So I absolutely believe in the power of consumers to make a big difference here. In my family, we have 6 children, so I've got my own domestic sustainability department, right? And it really gives you hope, right? But it's that domestic sustainability department that drives the behavior of Nike or Hewlett-Packard or Coca-Cola for our family. So I believe in the consumer, most definitely.
Last word to you.
The only thing I would add is that I think in the past, for us, when we think about circularity and sustainability, it has been tied to the pollution side of things with plastics. But more recently, a lot of what we're seeing, at least from the consumer voice, is the correlation to human health and how that's actually a bigger driving force for a lot of brands shifting some of their materials and how that's sort of evolving. And I think that's really, really key right now is that interconnection to human health and the data and the reports that we're seeing that we've never seen before around microplastics in our brains and our blood and everywhere. And so I think that was something we didn't expect maybe 5 years ago to be at the forefront of the transition, but now is actually there because of consumers recognizing this, analyzing their own blood, and seeing plastics in their bloodstreams, and that's creating new demand.
A whole new motivator.
Yeah.
Wow, that's great. We only have 1:40 left, so I just want to take time to thank you. It's been fascinating. I've learned a ton about you personally now. I know all your fun facts, plus the incredible work that you're doing on your own right and with your organization. So thank you very much for your innovations and your leaderships, and most of all, for being with us this afternoon. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that was an inspiring way to showcase leadership in the global and Canadian context, and thank you very much to the questions that came in also from the audience. We have just 15 minutes here as we're going to showcase one additional component to our closing plenary for day one, which is the Circular Initiatives Awards, and I'd like to welcome up Emily Chiasson, who is the communications coordinator and animator, chief animator with CCES, and we'll welcome her up here to announce the first set of awards, and then we'll celebrate.
I let you drive around my mind.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, everyone. I'm now going to switch to French to talk briefly about QuébecCirculaire.org and our annual campaign, the Circular Initiatives Awards. Alors, Québec circulaire, c'est la plateforme numérique collaborative de référence en économie circulaire au Québec. Puis, on organise chaque année, depuis maintenant 5 ans, les prix Initiatives circulaires. C'est vraiment pour souligner les innovations, les projets qui se démarquent partout dans la province. On cartographie aujourd'hui près de 500 initiatives locales sur la plateforme. Donc, ce chiffre-là monte chaque nouvelle édition. Puis, cette année, c'était encore 100 candidatures, un petit peu plus que 100 candidatures là, qu'on a reçues. On reçoit des initiatives de toutes sortes. Puis, on les catégorise dans 6 catégories qui correspondent à différents types d'organisations. Les prix, ça nous permet vraiment de voir à quel point il y a de l'engouement d'entreprises, d'organisations diversifiées pour les stratégies d'économie circulaire. Puis ces organisations-là, ben, ils s'investissent en économie circulaire, oui, pour répondre à des enjeux sociaux, environnementaux, mais aussi pour avoir des modèles d'affaires qui font du sens. Ils font ça pour assurer leur résilience, leur performance. Fait que c'est vraiment beau à voir tout le temps. Cette année encore, on pouvait compter sur Recyc Québec comme partenaire majeur des prix, puis de la plateforme Québec circulaire au grand complet. Alors maintenant, je vais inviter tous nos partenaires, Recyc Québec et autres partenaires, à venir célébrer, souligner les initiatives gagnantes ensemble. Je vais les inviter sur scène un à un. Puis ensuite, on va lancer une petite vidéo de 3 minutes pour découvrir les initiatives lauréates. Donc, j'invite, dans un premier temps, Emmanuel Géhin, PDG de Recyc Québec. Daniel Normandin, directeur du CERIEC et du Réseau de recherche en économie circulaire du Québec, le REC. Maryse Vermette, PDG d'Éco-Entreprise Québec. Et Jade Baudin, qui est chef performance environnementale chez Hydro-Québec. Donc, maintenant que tout le monde est là, ça va se dérouler sur les écrans où on voit mon visage en gros. On peut lancer la vidéo. Donc voilà, on a tout découvert tout ensemble. Puis maintenant, je vais inviter les lauréats à nous rejoindre sur scène. On va leur remettre des certificats, un à un. Puis ensuite, on va trinquer, comme Paul l'a proposé. Alors, tout d'abord, j'inviterai Jannick Martin, propriétaire des fermes PB, qui ont développé la tartinade à sandwich à base de résidus de production de charcuterie et de sous-produits de fabrication de tofu pour Moisson Montréal, à monter avec son acolyte. On va enchaîner avec Mario Fortin, directeur général du Recyclocentre, qui développe la valorisation de surplus textiles avec le conditionnement des tissus, la transformation vers des débouchés à valeur ajoutée.
Oh no,
j'invite Mathieu Filion, directeur général du groupe Pure Sphera, qui porte l'initiative Répare ton frigo de vente en ligne de pièces de réfrigérateur à monter. On suit avec Catherine Dufour-Ranou, conseillère en développement durable et carboneutralité au Cégep de Jonquière, qui a développé une stratégie là, pour propulser l'économie circulaire dans les OBNL, organismes publics de la région. Maintenant, j'inviterai Maïka Thibodeau, directrice associée recherche et contenu scientifique au CERMIM, qui est le centre de recherche sur les milieux insulaires et maritimes, qui porte plusieurs initiatives aux îles de la Madeleine à monter. Et pour conclure cette magnifique brochette, Gabriel Trottier-Hardy, directeur développement et affaires juridiques chez Enim, qui a développé la solution de récupération-recyclage des métaux critiques et stratégiques dans nos circuits électroniques. Donc, Paul voulait remonter sur scène avant qu'on procède à la photo finale.
To these innovators and winners of the awards. Merci beaucoup. And now it's time to celebrate. So we'd like to raise a glass of champagne in the other room and celebrate our winners and innovators and leaders from across Canada. So merci beaucoup. Enjoy the reception. And we'll see you back here again in the morning after the reception around 7:45 or 8 o'clock for breakfast. Merci. Joanne?
Drown my sorrows, but they learned to swim. Now what a hell of a year it's been. Head in a bottle for my heart in a case. It's getting harder to act my age. Play a sad song on a tiny violin for the man at the bar confessing his sins. I need some good news. Send me sipping on cold truth. No